Welcome to Robo Success, the podcast that loves robots, marketing, and success. Here we spotlight the innovators building the future of robotics. Hit subscribe, share with a friend, and let's get started.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Robo Success Podcast. My name is Jesica Chavez. Hi, Andy. How are you today?
I am doing great, and I'm really excited to learn more about Mitesh and what he is starting. So, yeah, I'm ready to go.
Thank you. Welcome, Mitesh, to the Robo Success Podcast. It is a pleasure to have you here. So I'm very excited about the topic because nobody talks about this, right? Like we hear a lot of things about what is happening in the robotics industry, in the ecosystem, but there are some topics that we don't hear much about. And Mitesh, so I'm excited to have you here. Please welcome and tell us a little bit about you, your background, what are you doing? So all yours.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you, Jessica and Andy, to organize this podcast. I'll be very happy to share my background and what I do. My name is Mitesh Shetty, and I'm a mechanical engineer. I did my bachelor's in engineering from India, and then I came to the US for my master's. Um, very much dealing with all the mechanical engineering tasks like working on prototyping phase, designing, validation, and all the way to mass production, working with gigantic companies like Honda and Cardinal. So engineering is my passion and something I always think about. And overall, with my professional experience and educational experience, I came across a sourcing challenge as a professional. So that is what I'm working on addressing with Raprod. Raprod is a company I started a year ago. Before that, I was working as an engineer, as an immigrant, dealing with the immigration challenges. And as soon as I was able to take care of majority of my immigration challenges, I'm like, this is the time for me to go ahead. And that is what Raprod is, with full speed, addressing the sourcing challenge for mechanical engineers like me who are designing products.
So, I guess dig into that a little bit more. So, my background is also engineering. I'm an electrical engineer by trade. And so I'm very familiar with building those first prototypes, trying to get those first prototypes out. Tell me a little bit more about what what you learned working in these larger companies. Like, where are those pain points in the sourcing process that Raprod is trying to solve?
Um, Beginning from smaller companies where I started designing products, a lot of the times in the engineering community, you focus on the engineering challenge you're solving, right? Be it the design, be it the CAD files, or be it any sort of diagrams that you're working on, the technical engineering challenge. So that is where I, as an engineer, spend most of the time working. As soon as you try to find a correct manufacturer that you want to work with, it that is where I experience stepping into the sourcing, like, hey, you designed this cool product. Now who's gonna make it for you? So that is the big challenge, starting from my job at Hotchkiss, where we were designing suspension components for racing vehicles. Um, we spend almost 6 to 8 months just to find the right manufacturer for us to work with. Going to Mexico, going to India, going to China, trying to find local manufacturers as well. And given the dynamics, it was cheaper to outsource from China and India, and either from Mexico, but that comes with its own challenges in coordination, vetting the supplier, and going ahead with it. And the smaller the company, the limited resource you have, the limited time you have. So you spend a good majority of the time just trying to figure out how are you actually going to get your designs and product made rather than the engineering challenge. And then
Mhm.
once it comes in, you test it out. Obviously, that's going to be iteration. And the more you iterate and more changes you make, it just compounds all over the time. And transitioning to bigger companies, the sourcing time frame is bigger as it grows because mass production challenges, logistics, material, customs, tariffs, it just adds up. So over the time, as a mechanical engineer who is more passionate in designing hardware, I spend us spending way more amount of time just to figure out, hey, how can I get this made? Instead of actually trying to address the engineering challenge. So that is what I experienced throughout my journey from a design engineer to a full scale, like senior manufacturing engineer.
So I've seen it many times, and I'm sure you have also, where you take on an engineering challenge and you come up with an elegant solution that's perfect. And it's once you get to the end of the design, you realize that it's made out of unobtainium, right? You can't actually source it, you can't actually get it made. So when you're looking at that engineering process of where you're developing, whether it's a robotic system or a technology component, when is the right time in the design cycle to think about your sourcing plan and how you're going to have that product made?
Um, the correct time is to actually start sourcing parallelly.
Hmm.
Just to make it a point that it is an absolutely important task and workflow you have, and you should start it parallelly. I made a mistake, and my team, the engineering team, has made a mistake of doing it sequentially because we're busy trying to solve the engineering challenge, make sure what the customer requirements are, what the feedback is, what the design changes are. And then once that is done, we're extremely happy. Oh, this is gonna on computer. This is gonna be awesome. This is gonna improve our numbers by XYZ percentage. And then we get into sourcing. But the correct way and faster way to go forward is to do it sequentially, which means you have to have an active set of manufacturers who work with, who are actively in the loop that, hey, these are the changes you're working with. This is the material we have. If I want to be creative and pick up a nice material that's lighter, more expensive, but it has to be available with the manufacturer for you to even make it. So key takeaway from that would be definitely keep that as a parallel task in terms of sourcing.
Yep. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think something we need to understand now going into the topics into robotics is that robotics is different that has been happening in automotive, medical devices, or the other kind of hardware development, right? Especially the way it's happening right now, also robotics. So I think they are a very unique challenge, especially for sourcing. And I would like to hear, what is your experience with that? What do you think is that unique, challenge for robotics companies on this part?
For the robots, so just to give a brief about my background, starting with any companies, let's say automotive, Honda I worked with, they work with high precision, high volume, and the contract cycle is long. It's just years. For like, let's say consumer electronics is high volume, standardized, but low variation. The variation is quite low. Robotics is very equivalent to smaller startups that we work with because robotics is like the cutting edge of development, physical development we are at this point, which means you need lower volume, higher precision, and fast iteration. It comes with its own challenge. Um, Even if you're working, let's say you got 10 manufacturers you work with, you are a robotics company who's developing fast, who are making changes.
Yep.
Quite possibly, and this is the genuine feedback I've gotten from the companies who are fast iterating, is the existing rooster they have cannot really help them with the manufacturing aspect of it. I've personally worked with robotic companies, hardware companies who, before they met Raprod, they've spent more than a year just to find someone who can help them get a prototype made. Um, just for you to get a prototype made, if you spend more than a year on that, there is genuinely a big issue going on in there.
Oh yeah.
And that's the finding the right manufacturer. Then you have the logistics of it on exactly where you find it. Maybe in China, you're sitting somewhere in Australia or US somewhere. Then you have to travel to China or maybe, Malaysia. There, people are transitioning to Malaysia or Mexico. So that is the biggest challenge the robotic companies face, where like faster iteration, and not just robotics, it's, data centers, is battery energy storage. Whichever sector is at the cutting edge of development and faster iterating, it is a genuine challenge for them. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I was talking with a lot of startups who come back by YC Combinator, and they have 3 months to develop a prototype, right? Once they receive the fund, it's like in 3 months, you have to show me what you're capable of come up with. So if you imagine that really almost no time to be looking for someone, right? So having the right partner, even I would say, even when you are coming with the idea of what you want to build, that's the right moment. You don't have to find it once you have the problem. You have to start thinking the moment you're thinking of your idea, who is going to be the right partner.
hmm And perfectly, the example you gave, it is an indication of how hardware teams go. Like they have the resource, but they are on a very aggressive timeline, and even they still, even they still find out a way to go to China and get it done, and not domestically. That just speaks volume of the issues you have. It's not like it's a mass production contract that, hey, better engineering or whatever. It's even for smaller contracts, smaller, faster trading products, teams would prefer to go to like Shenzhen or China, get it done. That just speaks, humongous amount of problem that these teams face, and that is where uh, Raprod jumps in, is to have your own user profile in the system, and everything builds accordingly to what you are building. Simply put, kind of like a social media for engineers. And not just social media where, there's random information coming in, just pure business, manufacturers and engineers getting to get the job done. And for hardware engineers who are busy solving engineering problems, just as a important tool on the side that gets the work for them, and finding the right partner to work with. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I've worked a lot in, you describe basically, I would call it the high mix, low volume environment, right? Where you're doing research and development, you're creating prototypes, and I need this part for my prototype today, and tomorrow that part may look totally different, right? And so it's not even the key, and I think you'll agree with me, it's not even about finding the best vendor. It's about finding the right vendor for your problem and what you're trying to solve in the time frame you're trying to solve it, right? I had an engagement with a vendor just last week of, hey, I'm working on this product, and in my case, I was putting together a proposal. It's like I need to solve this problem for this proposal, and the vendor was very helpful and said, oh, let's look at your annual production volumes, and let's talk more about your product. It's like, no, that's not what I need. I need one part for a prototype, and I need it now. And at the end of the day, he couldn't even answer my questions to keep up in time. And it's not that he didn't have a solution that would work for me. He just wasn't the right vendor for the right time to hit those deadlines that I need. So I'm sure other people are feeling that pain also. Um, so yeah, Mitesh, tell me a little bit more about Raprod and how your business operates and how you engage with your clients.
Yes. So Raprod is an online manufacturing marketplace addressing the exact problem that we are discussing about. As you encountered, as I've encountered, working as an engineer, what we are working on and what we do right now is hardware engineering teams can create their own account and put their designs in, engineering drawings specifically, and you just put it out in the marketplace, and then there are manufacturers who have their exact profiles in the system, and the algorithm works into matching you to the right manufacturers, and not just one. The objective is to give the engineering team uh, a very rich amount of choice in manufacturers. So instead of you as an engineering team trying to spend weeks, months, half a year, or a year trying to get the right guy, now you have 10 or 15 different quotes. We work on compressing that timeline and to get it to you online with all the DFM feedback, with everything that the manufacturer has to offer. That is a plain and simple model of the Raprod at the moment, which is addressing the time crunch that the engineering team faces. And the other most important part is the engineering knowledge. So as you might have worked with sourcing with manufacturers or suppliers, whenever you go to them with a design, there is always a DFM feedback, like design for
Mhm.
manufacturing. Like, hey, we have this grade of aluminum and not the one that you're looking for, or maybe, cold rolled steel would be a cheaper option, or, titanium would be more expensive, sourcing challenges, etc. So in Raprod helps you communicate with the manufacturers and take the feedback as well. The objective with that is to have a consolidated information on the feedback and the engineering in the user profile for the engineering team. Instead of these are knowledge and information that is available fragmented all across the world. But to have a consolidated information for you to take a better decision, that is what you'll find in Raprod. So, yeah, that is what we're trying to work with Raprod.
Yeah, that's great because I think, we touched on it before, but really manufacturing has to be part of your design process, right? And a lot of times, me as an engineer, I don't know how these two pieces of metal are going to be welded together, right? The manufacturer knows how to weld those together. And the last thing that I want to do is over constrain my drawing that they're going to try and meet that, and if it doesn't meet their process, then we're butting heads, right? And we're not getting the best product. So I think that's great. I think it gives you an opportunity to get that feedback from potential manufacturers. And what I'm hearing is that your wrap rod system is going to be beneficial for those smaller manufacturing machine shops, producers to get more involved in the robotics ecosystem too. Is that right?
Absolutely. That is an insight I've earned working and talking to the smaller manufacturers is
Mhm.
for them to penetrate into the ecosystem, that's a challenge because there are smaller local shops producing high quality components, but nobody really knows about them because either they have to pay a very high fees to enter into a legacy platform, or either if they're part of the system's quite opaque. A lot of the some of the existing system we have, they just give you a quote, and whatever goes in the background, nobody really knows about it. So the shops that are actually doing a great job, they don't really have anyone that actually helps them get more business. So the smaller businesses are definitely eager and they jump in to be part of this as their experience over the time is they've experienced more exploitative business practices. Either they've been kept in the dark, either the system's completely opaque. And what happens is a very key insight I've learned is, let's say an engineering team needs to make a part, maybe 5 or 10 parts for their validation testing. They go through an opaque system that just gives you out a quote. Now, what happens is sometime in the middle of the run, they might change the shop and you don't really know about it. So the engineering team has absolutely no idea where the first three pieces they look alike, and the other 5 or 7 pieces they kind of look different. The tolerances is different. The performance is a bit different. And then the blame goes on either the shop, hey, you guys didn't do it, So the system is all opaque, and the smaller shops are genuinely much more supportive into jumping in and be part of this ecosystem because first of all, for you to join in Raprod, there's no paywall at the moment. The objective is to have a high knowledge, good quality information ecosystem for the engineers and for the manufacturers. And that is definitely a proponent, for the smaller manufacturers to jump in there.
I love this. Again, like I'm a firm believer of creating the ecosystem, right? An ecosystem means you need to have partners in every step, building a company, right? Building a startup. Yes, like you say, there are too many, manufacturing firms out there that are big, that they have a big process and they are more used to work with big corporations, right? If you're a startup, you need to deploy faster, you need to iterate, right? And the complexity of the engineering of building hardware, right, is more about the real partners, the sourcings, that who is gonna get you quickly to the market, especially if you are looking for busy money, right? You cannot have a long process of development. You need to be quicker. And one of the reasons I found Robo Success is for that exactly, right? Like I know at some point you might be able to build your own team, right? And having your marketing team because you are getting bigger and you need a more structured department. But at the beginning, you need those small companies that are ready to iterate with you and ready to be changing hats and say, okay, I have this. So from your experience, right? What do you think a startup, a robotics company needs to start focusing, right? As soon as they start getting, the first idea of the concept.
The first idea of concept, the question was, what should they focus on?
Mm-hmm.
Right? For the robotics companies, the first focus would definitely be on the design and engineering challenge they are facing. And definitely the other challenge is to have a good sourcing partner, because they are busy addressing the engineering challenge. And sourcing is something, they will stumble upon, no matter what. So for smaller teams, that is where a company like Raprod is in there to have like a sourcing partner for you to work with. Yeah.
Yeah, and it seems like oftentimes our conversations with companies go to this partnership model, right? Especially, Jessica and I talk with a lot of technology startups, and the most important thing for those technology startups to do is really focus on their core technology, creating value, increasing their technology readiness level, and really focusing on their core business. And, a lot of these startups want to create a giant corporation that can do all of it. But early on, it's important to partner. And partnering makes a lot of sense for almost all startup businesses. I always put a lot of value in the partnerships that I have. And I can tell you as an engineer, I don't like dealing with sourcing, right? It's not engineering, it's not fun, it's not creating new products or new technology. It's just something that has to be done. So I love it. I think it's great. And I'm really excited to see where Raprod goes.
Yes, absolutely. That does ring a bell with me. Is as an engineer, I hated sourcing part as well. When we were part of the racing team, we were so passionate about, we gotta win this race. I had this extremely fancy engineer component that's gonna improve our numbers, XYZ margin and everything. And then we're like, oh, who's gonna make it for us? So that was my learning curve. And what I've learned over the time, if something is hard, go for it. And something is boring, go for it. That is where a lot of the problem exists because it's not as, interesting, but when you actually do it, you're in the trenches. And that is the whole foundational concept with Raprod is For me, I was very much inspired by something like AWS, Amazon Web Services, or Amazon
Hmm.
FBA fulfillment by Amazon, or something like credit card processing. These technologies are infrastructural technologies. We do not think twice about using a credit card because the system's all set up. Imagine a life without credit card where you're taking care of a bunch of cash or gold with you, and there's n number of problems to deal with that. Or for us, even us as a startup, we work with AWS. I don't have to buy my own server. I don't have to do anything.
Hmm.
I just pay a subscription, get it done. So that is the foundational concept with Raprod is to have a wide global infrastructure-based ecosystem where hardware companies the barrier for the hardware companies to create hardware is lower. And that is the reason the number of failures, or I call it quits, is more in hardware companies. Like software, the penetration is higher. The barrier to entry is lower. You know, if there is any problem, you put a software patch, you push it in the app store, you get it done. Hardware doesn't work like that. If a robotic company decides that the highly dexterous arm they made, there's a design challenge. It's, there's a safety issue. Then you get into designing, then you get into sourcing, then you get into prototyping, then you get into mass production. It's just a whole another can of worms, an infrastructural can of worms that is not addressed with the smartness of the AI we have. And that is where we are pushing to go ahead. And that is the grand vision for Raprod, is to have that infrastructure foundation. If someone decides to have robotics companies or any hardware companies, um, sourcing should be the least of their worries. And given the progress we are having in AI, in the software AI, you might have seen a lot of articles and newses where we are hitting a wall in terms of physical AI. We do not have enough data centers. We do not have enough storage capacity to all the electricity we are generating. Storage is a big problem. That's how the entire grid is set up. Storage, batteries, and definitely the humanoid bots, which is my absolutely favorite on the wall we have, and how that's a slightly different topic and where I was going, but humanoid bot is something my most favorite project because just a perspective, if you look at the infrastructure, everything is designed for humans, from the ergonomics in your vehicle to working in a kitchen or be in a factory or a space center. Um, a humanoid bot is the most effective bot you can have, and the least amount of barrier you can have to incorporate in our ecosystem rather than making a specialized machine. So uh, my focus would always be personal focus is like how we can work with humanoid bot companies and how we can support these companies to have more variations, more competition, more engineering companies trying to address this challenge and overall have a much more, wider, colorful ecosystem of, with the engineering and the manufacturing.
Absolutely, 100% with you, and as you know, I work a lot with too many humanoids companies, and definitely, especially the ones that we keep seeing that they are still blooming new use cases, right? Okay, one that are used for home, and others that are going to be addressing helping laundry companies, and others for medical, right? So all these use cases keep arising, and they need these partners to make it happen, especially here in the US, where now also, as politically, they are trying to focus on bringing back manufacturing. So how can the partners across the country can help support these ideas coming into reality, into the market?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, well,
Absolutely.
Jessica, I want to add on to that last point. I think there's definitely a resurgence of manufacturing in the United States. There's also a large core base of small manufacturing companies in the United States. And there's a lot of companies that have historically supported like a lot of the automotive industry and a lot of these traditional industries that are transforming. And so there's a lot of manufacturing within the United States, and a lot of these smaller manufacturers have never had to do a lot of business development or finding new companies to work with, and they're struggling to figure out how to jump on the physical AI, robotics, and all of these emerging technologies. So I think this will be a big benefit for those smaller companies also to give them an opportunity to reach into these technical sectors and grow their customer base while supporting the innovative startups and making sure that they can grow.
Yep, absolutely.
Absolutely.
So, well, Mitesh, we are getting to the end of this podcast. It has been great to having you. So before we finish this, if you can share how people can reach out to you, how can learn more about Raprod, and well, anything else you would like to add, it would be awesome.
Absolutely. Um, it was great having a discussion with both of you. Personally, I like communicating with people who can, who are feeling the pain and who are part of the ecosystem. And what I would like to share is Raprod stems from an engineer who's faced this problem, and I am someone who's worked with the engineering and also being exposed to a software element of play. So, someone who can understand the efficiency of a software and the grunt we have in this industry is trying to working on addressing this infrastructural challenge we have. And for anyone, any hardware engineers who are building, Raprod is a sourcing partner for you. And we would be more than happy to jump in and even work with you, look at it as an engineer for startups. And yes, absolutely. Pleasure talking to you both. Yeah,
No, thank you. I'm pleased to everybody who's listening this podcast. Follow Mitesh in LinkedIn. He's doing amazing things, and I think you really need to have him as a partner and join Raprod for sure.
absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Jessica.
you.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Andy, for being here, also as my co-host, and it was a pleasure to have you both. So have a good one.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks so much.